friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany and I'm so glad to have you joining me for another Foodie Friday. In today's video, we are going to be putting together a beautiful, quick, easy, and semi-homemade Easter brunch or a spring brunch if you're looking just to treat yourself or your family and friends. I am so excited about this spread. Super easy items. I can't wait. We are making some beautiful deviled eggs. I love to make a colored deviled egg for all different types of holidays or seasons or events. Such a great way to dress up your charcuterie board or your brunch buffet. It looks beautiful and it's really, really simple and of course delicious. We're also going to be making some prosciutto and asparagus puff pastries, as well as a delicious pepper jack potato casserole. So give you something a little bit savory and a little bit spicy on your buffet table. And I'm also going to show you how to doctor up a store-bought cake to make it look nice and fancy and no one will ever know that you didn't make it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. To get us started today, we are going to work on our hard-boiled eggs. So I'm grabbing my Instant Pot. I have found that this is by far the easiest way, quickest way to cook your hard-boiled eggs, and it does lend itself to the easiest peel that I have found. So you just want to make sure you have your trivet down at the bottom. Go ahead and put in however many eggs you need. Add 1 cup of water, and then you're going to follow the 5-5-5 method. Put the lid on, pressure cook your eggs for 5 minutes. Let them sit for 5 minutes when they're done, and then release the pressure and put them immediately into an ice bath for 5 minutes. Works every time. While those are going, I'm also going to go ahead and get started on the bacon for our potato casserole. So I'm grabbing a large skillet and we're going to get our bacon cooking in the background. I always make sure to put my lid on with a little bit of vent space, and we're going to let that cook in the background while we get started on the rest of our items. For your potato casserole, you're going to get started with one 30 to 32 ounce bag of frozen shredded hash browns. Make sure that they are thawed out before you start baking. Then you're going to add in one 10.5 ounce can of cream of chicken soup. You're also going to add in 2 cups of shredded pepper jack cheese. Now this is what gives it that delicious little bit of spice to it. So 2 cups of shredded pepper jack cheese. If you are not a fan of that, you can use just regular cheddar and it is equally as delicious. But for this one, we're going to use the pepper jack to give us a little bit of kick. Once you have your cheese added, you're also going to add in 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream. Along with our heavy whipping cream, we're also going to add in 1/2 cup of sour cream. I'm kind of just eyeballing it here. And then 1 cup or so of grated Parmesan cheese. Now only half of that is going to go in right now. We're going to put the other half on the top. While we were doing that, our eggs were done. So I released the pressure and now we're going to put those immediately into an ice bath to stop the cooking and let those cool. So let those cool for another 5 minutes and then we'll get them peeled. We're also going to add in 1/2 cup of melted butter and then go ahead and give your potatoes a stir. Make sure that they're blended and then we're going to season it up. Make sure you season with some salt and some pepper. And then you're also going to add in a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder to your taste. And again, give that a good stir. Make sure that you season it pretty well. Don't be afraid to be liberal with your salt. These potatoes can be very bland. So I use kosher salt when I'm cooking, but it's completely up to you. But just make sure you give it a little bit of salt. After we ate this, I will say, looking back, I wish I would have put a couple of dashes of Lowry's. I love Lowry's with potatoes, so I'll do that next time. I'm going to be using this baking dish here from the Hearth and Hand line at Target, and I did grease the bottom with a little bit of Pam, and then we're going to put all of our potatoes into this dish. I do believe the recipe calls for a 9 by 13 baking dish. I just don't find those to be the most pretty, and I wanted it to look nice for the Easter brunch, so I did it in this one. You might have to cook it for a few extra minutes. That's what I had to do. It was a little bit thicker than what the recipe calls for, so give it a little bit of extra cooking time if you use a thicker dish like this. Now we're going to work on our topping. For this, you're going to need 1 sleeve of Ritz crackers that you're going to crush up, as well as the other half of the 1 cup of Parmesan cheese. That was very confusing. So a half a cup of Parmesan cheese goes into your potatoes. The other half goes into your topping. And then you're going to chop up your bacon. It calls for a half a cup of cooked chopped bacon. So that's a half a cup of chopped bacon, not a half a cup of uncooked, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm putting here. I'd probably say that I was maybe just a little bit over a half a cup. I used 6 slices of bacon total. And then you're also going to want to put a little bit of salt and pepper in there. I'm adding all of these into a gallon Ziploc bag, which will allow for me to crush everything up and combine it really, really well before putting it on the top of our potatoes. Once everything's crushed up and combined, go ahead and sprinkle that all across the top. This is what's going to give your potatoes a delicious crispy crunch on the top. So go ahead and layer those on top, spread them out, and then you're going to sprinkle the top with a little bit of paprika before popping this in the oven for about 45 minutes. Next up, we're going to work on our asparagus puffs. Now, these are a really simple recipe that I found on Pinterest. I'll have it linked for you down below, but I'm getting started with some fresh asparagus here. Go ahead and chop off the bottom of your asparagus. I would say about 1/4 or so. You can do it whatever method you prefer, but as you can see, those are all perfectly fresh and delicious. And now we're going to grab our puff pastry. So for this recipe today, I am only making 4 puffs just because this was being filmed a few days in advance and I wasn't having our entire family over. However, I am remaking these on Easter and we'll be making a lot more. But I'm using 1 sleeve of puff pastry here and just kind of spreading it out with my rolling pin, making it nice and flat and smooth. And then I'm cutting it into 4 puffs. You could thin this out just a little bit more if you don't want as much puff pastry, but I definitely think this was a good amount of puff pastry to the rest of our ingredients. You're going to go ahead and dress your asparagus with some extra virgin olive oil, some kosher salt, a little bit of freshly cracked pepper. Give that a good stir and those are ready. You're not going to pre-cook or blanch your asparagus. You want them to cook in the oven so they still have a little bit of texture to them when you're eating them. Start by layering some prosciutto at the bottom of your puff pastry and then add in 3 asparagus shoots to each of your puff pastry squares. This is like the perfect amount of asparagus, I find. And then you're going to top it with cheese. Now the recipe does call for Gruyere cheese. I did not have that, so I'm just using Parmesan. I think it was equally as delicious. The Gruyere probably would have just given it a little bit more of a rich flavor, but if you don't have Gruyere, you can't find it, Parmesan worked perfectly. Go ahead and wrap your puff pastry around your asparagus and tuck it in just a little bit. We are going to use an egg wash to make sure that everything sticks together and comes out with a nice gloss to it. So we'll use the egg wash here in just a minute to hold everything together, but fold them in on each other. It's nice that you can still see the ingredients in there. I'm layering mine on a baking sheet that I have lined with a little bit of tin foil. I did spray it just a tad with some Pam, and then I'm covering all of my puff pastry with a little bit of egg wash, and we're going to sprinkle them with a little bit of fresh salt, and then these are going to go in the oven. Now, I think that I baked them for approximately 15 minutes or so, but I'll have the recipe listed for you down below. Keep an eye on them. You want them to be puffed up and golden brown, but they will burn quickly, so you just want to keep an eye. While those are baking, we're going to get started on our deviled eggs. I've got a bowl here with water, and I'm just putting in a little bit of red food coloring because I wanted a little bit of a pink tint, and I did not have pink food coloring. I thought that I did, but I didn't. I couldn't find it, so we're just using the red. Go ahead and cut your hard-boiled eggs in half. Remove the yolk, put those in a separate bowl so we can make our filling, and then you're going to put your egg whites directly into that bowl with the food coloring. Let those sit for a little while until you get to the color that you're looking for. The longer they sit, the darker the color, so we want to keep them really pastel. They only sat in there for about 10 minutes. Now we're going to make our filling. I will say that my filling got a little bit too liquidy, and I blame my relish, but you can make your deviled eggs however you prefer. I've got some mayonnaise, some relish, salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. I put that to the side so that our eggs could continue to sit in the food coloring. And while that's going, we're going to work on putting together a quick and really simple charcuterie board. I'm starting off here with ready-made spinach and artichoke dip that I picked up in the produce section at the grocery store. And I'm putting it in this bowl here with a little bit of lettuce layered on the bottom just to make it look a little bit fancier for Easter, very springy. But I did not make this, so it keeps it semi-homemade and super simple. You can use any kind of platter that you want to use. You can use a nice wooden charcuterie board. Today I'm using this beautiful platter I picked up at Hobby Lobby during, I think it was Thanksgiving, and I'm starting off with some more of those Ritz crackers. I decided to go with those since I already needed them for the potato casserole. And now we're just going to bring in a bunch of different fresh items. So I've got strawberries. We're also going to bring in some fresh carrots and celery. These have already been cut at the grocery store. That was a way to just make things go a little bit faster and easier, and you could save money by, cutting them yourselves. However, I just needed something that was going to be really simple and quick. So I've got this combination here of carrots and celery, and they're already cut, perfectly to dip into our Parmesan and artichoke dip there. I also have this adorable little egg holder from Target. This was in their dollar section this year, and we're going to use this to hold our deviled eggs. I will say that the deviled eggs were very runny this time. I'm so bummed with how the filling turned out. In the future, I'll make sure that I don't, let as much liquid go in there. Usually I pipe my filling in. However, this time it was just very, very liquidy. So I'm also going to cut some fresh cheese there, just a little bit of some Vermont sharp cheddar by Cabot. That's my favorite cheese. We're going to put that over here in the corner, as well as some grape tomatoes. You're going to stick those on there. And now we're going to work on our deviled eggs. So I'm just pulling these out of our food coloring. They've got this really pretty pink color to them. And this is just a fun way to add a little bit of something extra to your deviled eggs when you've got a holiday. I did this for the 4th of July, and I did red, white, and blue, and they looked so pretty on the platter. They add a little bit of color, so they're like decoration as well as food. But as you can see, my filling was definitely a little bit more liquidy than I typically have. So normally it would be nice and stiff and we'd pipe it in, but that's going to work for us today. My kids devoured these and it was, easy peasy, not a big deal. So look how cute they look in the egg holder. I just absolutely love it. Now we're going to work on our cake. I did pick up this carrot cake from my local grocery store. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Carrot cakes are so delicious and perfect for Easter. However, they're pretty involved to make. And again, I just wanted to keep things simple so that I could enjoy time with my family and less time in the kitchen. So to make it look a little bit fancier, I'm adding it to this wooden cake platter here I picked up at Hobby Lobby. And then I'm taking fresh thyme and making a little bit of a wreath around the bottom of my cake. This just looks really pretty, very springy, and adds a little bit of a homemade touch to something I didn't make. My friends, that brings us to the end of this cook with me. We're gonna go ahead and give these potatoes a try. They are so cheesy. Oh my goodness. They've got a nice little kick to them. They're spicy, so if that's not your jam, use a different cheese. Let's try our asparagus puff. It's salty and light. So delicious.